Good morning, students. Today in this class, I am going to discuss about story writing. I will give you certain tips of how to write a story in a very interesting way. Okay? See, until class 8 students, you have been provided with the plot, the character, the setting of a story, right? But from class 9 onwards, you will be given only the first sentence of a story. That means the rest of the story has to be developed by you. So, of course, it is a more challenging task, but it is also at the same time very interesting and also very creative on your part, isn't it? Because the entire plot, setting, character can be developed by you, isn't it? So, now let us discuss these 5 elements or the 5 very important components of writing a story. Okay, so a story writing is basically a work of fiction, isn't it? So, what is the difference between a fiction and a non-fiction? The chapter on Albert Einstein is an example of non-fiction. Okay, so non-fiction is basically a work which features the actual facts. Okay, for example, the lesson that we did on Albert Einstein is a work of non-fiction because that revolved around the actual facts that took place in the life of Albert Einstein. Okay, but in a story, it can be fiction at the same time, non-fiction also, but most of the stories are fiction or imaginative, you can say. They are not real. Okay, they are not based on actual facts. Okay, now let us discuss the 5 key elements for writing a story. The first one is character. Okay, so before you proceed with writing the story, you have to create the characters for your story. Don't take up too many characters because you have to understand that you are writing from examination point of view, isn't it? If you are writing it for your as an amateur writer, then it is okay, you can create multiple characters. But if you are writing it from examination point of view, try to create very few characters. Maybe you can have one protagonist, or protagonist means the main character, and there can be 1 or 2 more other characters. Okay, next is setting. And yes, of course, your characters must be very lively and very vivid. Okay, you should be able to give life to your characters. They should not be dull and boring. Okay, they should be very very real. Okay, now coming to the setting of your story. Setting is exactly the place where the events are taking place. Okay, so it can be a marketplace, it can be your house, it can be a forest, it can be a school, it can be anywhere, isn't it? It can be very imaginative, it can be somewhere in the space also if you want to give such kind of a setting, right? Next comes the plot. Now, what is a plot in a story? Plot is the development of the events, okay, or the arrangement of the events in the story, isn't it? You have to arrange the events in a very natural manner. Okay, it should be coherent. That means one event should be linked to the next event. Okay, and only then your plot will become interesting. Otherwise, if your events are not flowing naturally and if they are not coherent, then your plot will not be understood by the person who is reading it, isn't it? So your plot should be very coherent. The event should be arranged in a very natural manner. Okay, in a very coherent manner. Okay, now your plot should be arranged in such a way, okay, or the event should be arranged in such a way so that your plot reaches a conflict, so that the events are serially, it should be arranged in such a way that it reaches the climax of the conflict in the story. Okay, that is the most vital part of your story, isn't it? So that is the part, you have to create the conflict in such a way so that your readers are actually eager to wait, eager to know what is there in the conflict. Okay, so don't make your plot very predictable. Okay, when I am reading your story, I shouldn't be it should create some kind of curiosity in me. I should be waiting to know what is happening in the climax of your story. Okay, so you have to arrange your plot, arrange the events in such a manner so that it reaches an interesting conflict or an interesting climax. Okay, and theme is, we all know theme, that is the dominant idea of that story, the dominant idea that you want to express through that story. Okay, now we will try to understand this by taking an example. Okay, we will try to take an example of a film. Okay, we'll take a very popular Bollywood movie. I think you all have watched Bahubali. Let us take the example of Bahubali. Okay, and we will try to understand all these key elements of the story with respect to that movie. Okay, now in that movie, Bahubali, the characters, the selection of the characters made by the director, isn't it? It was so interesting, isn't it? The characters were so interesting. We came across character like Bahubali. We came across character like Bhallal Dev. We came across character like Katappa. We came across a character like Shivagami Devi. So the characters were, each of the characters were very interesting in that movie, isn't it? So you can see that the character plays a very important role in your story. Okay, now the setting. So we have seen that the setting of the movie was basically the kingdom where Bhallal Dev and Bahubali, they were the rulers, right? Now the plot of the movie. What was the plot of the movie? The sequence, the events. The events were arranged in such a way in that movie that it reached to the conflict, the climax of the movie. Okay, so the events were actually what it showed the conflict between the two brothers, isn't it? Bahubali, who was a very nice, a generous, a virtuous commander, and his brother Bhallal Dev, who always wanted to be the king of that particular kingdom, right? So gradually the sequence was arranged in such a way that it reached to the climax of the story. Now, what was the climax of the story in that movie? Can you guess? Yes, the climax is when Katappa kills Bahubali, isn't it? And everyone is shocked. In part 1, you see, everyone is shocked to see that Katappa, who really loved Bahubali like anything, and Bahubali considered him as his mama, uncle, he killed Bahubali. But in that movie, part 1, we were not told that why Katappa had killed Bahubali, right? So see, the director was so smart. He already had planned that he is going to make 2 movies, isn't it? 2 parts of Bahubali. So he kept the suspense intact, so that when second part of the movie is released, we all go running to the hall to see what happens next. Why we actually went to see that why Katappa killed Bahubali, isn't it? So that suspense, that mystery in your story is very important. You have to create that suspense and mystery. Your story should not be very flat. Okay, the plot should not be very flat and very predictable. That means when I'm reading the story, when I start reading a story, it should not be kind of a thing that I'm able to understand what is happening next. Okay, so your events should be very interesting. Okay, and the theme of the story, the theme of that movie was, of course, that finally good overcomes the bad, isn't it? Overshadows the bad. Good always overshadows the evil. Okay, so I think you have understood these 5 key elements of writing a story. Now let me discuss with you the marking scheme. Okay, see, this is the marking scheme for class 10 as well as for class 9 also. Okay, my target is that my target is to actually groom you up for class 10 board exam. Okay, so I'm giving you exactly the marking scheme which is required for class 10 board exam. Okay, so the title, and so what is the format of your story? Your story should have a title, okay, and a moral at the end. At the end of the story, you must have a moral, and at the beginning, you should have a title. For that, you get 1 mark. If you don't write the title or you miss the moral, then you lose marks here. Then the content. Now the content is what? The content is all these 5 elements, I should say. Okay, so this content will give you 4 marks. Okay. Next, expression. The way you are writing. Okay, you are expressing your ideas through writing. Okay, the coherence, it should be related to each other. Relevance of ideas. Okay, so that will give you 2.5 marks. Accuracy, that means the grammatical part, appropriate words, okay, adjectives to describe the characters, correct spellings, that will again give you 2.5 marks. Okay, suggested value points, the beginning of the story is given in the question. Okay, so this is one thing that you will get in your question paper. The beginning will be given to you, and then the rest of the story has to be developed by you, keeping in mind all these 5 elements. Okay, students, I hope you have understood how to write a story. But let me tell you one thing, uh, you won't become an expert, okay, in writing something overnight. Okay, writing, if you want to improve your writing skill, you have to constantly write every day. Okay, you have to write, you have to practice writing every day, and only then you can develop your flair of writing or your fluency in writing. Don't imagine that one fine day you have learned the techniques of writing a story. We know what are the things that are needed for writing a story, and you wake up, you woke up tomorrow morning and you start writing a good story. No, it will never happen. Okay, you have to consistently practice every day. Write something every day for half an hour at least, if you want to improve your writing skills. Okay, and once your writing skills are improved, you will start scoring better marks in other subjects also, right? So otherwise, what is the point of teaching you all how to write a story, isn't it? Some of you may pursue science, commerce, and you won't need to write a story anymore. But then, through this process, the main objective is to develop your language, isn't it? So that in higher classes also you are able to express yourself. Okay, language is very important. Language is the most powerful tool, let me tell you. You may know many things, but if you are not able to express yourself while speaking or while writing, it will be of no use, isn't it? So please, students, please write something every day. Okay, and also do reading every day. Read something every day, whatever it is. Okay, you may read sports magazine, you may read whatever you like, but read and write simultaneously every day. Okay, thank you, students. Thank you very much.